Think the 1970s kitchen was all avocado appliances and TV dinners? The real story played out in homes where mothers stretched 50 cents into supper for 6. While gas lines snaked around blocks and grocery bills doubled overnight, American families ate better than you'd expect on $5 a day. These weren't survival rations. They were genuine meals that happened to cost almost nothing, cooked by women who knew exactly how far a pound of hamburger could stretch and with shelf-stable ingredients never let you down. Let's revisit 25 budget recipes that defined an era, then vanished when prosperity returned. Ham and bean soup. Ham and bean soup turned Sunday's hambone into Thursday's dinner. After a holiday or special occasion where you'd splurge on a ham, that bone with its clinging scraps of meat became the foundation for days of meals. You'd throw it into your biggest pot with dried white beans, onions, carrots, celery, and enough water to cover everything by several inches. It'd simmer for hours, the kitchen filling with that deep, savory smell of ham and beans cooking together. The beans softened gradually. The remaining ham fell off the bone in tender shreds. The marrow and collagen leached out, making the broth rich and slightly gelatinous, coating your mouth with savory satisfaction that felt luxurious despite the humble ingredients. By dinner time, the soup was thick with creamy beans and studded with ham pieces. Each spoonful delivered comfort and substance, proving that nothing got wasted in a thrifty 1970s kitchen. That ham bone, which many people would toss in the trash, became the gift that kept giving across multiple meals, feeding a family for the cost of a bag of dried beans and whatever vegetables you had on hand. Budget beef stroganoff. Budget beef stroganoff in the 1970s bore little resemblance to the Russian original. You'd take cheap stew meat, or even ground beef if that's what you could afford, brown it with onions and mushrooms. Can a fresh cost too much? Then create a sauce from cream of mushroom soup mixed with sour cream. The whole thing got poured over egg noodles and served like you'd made something fancy. The taste was creamy and vaguely beefy, with that distinctive processed mushroom soup flavor that defined an entire generation of American cooking. The sour cream added tanginess, cutting through the richness just enough to make you want another bite. Each forkful combined soft noodles, tender meat pieces, and that smooth beige sauce that coated everything evenly. Nobody thought they were eating authentic Russian cuisine, but it tasted good, it filled you up, and it cost less than $3 to feed a family of 6. The cream of mushroom soup did all the heavy lifting, turning cheap ingredients into something that felt special enough for a weeknight celebration when Dad got overtime or Mom's hours increased. Hamburger stew. Hamburger stew was what you made when pot roast became a fantasy, and you still needed something that felt like Sunday dinner. Start with half a pound of the cheapest ground beef from the butcher, brown it with diced onions until the kitchen smelled like cooking meat, then raid the vegetable drawer for anything that needed using. Potatoes got cubed, carrots got sliced, celery went in if you had it, frozen peas made it colorful. A can of tomato soup provided body and richness without costing much. Beef bouillon cubes dissolved in water created broth that tasted meatier than it had any right to given how little actual beef floated in that pot. Everything simmered together until the vegetables went completely soft and the liquid reduced to something thick enough to coat a spoon. What landed in your bowl was honest food. Soft potato chunks that fell apart on your tongue, sweet carrots that had absorbed all that beefy flavor, and little crumbles of seasoned hamburger that made every spoonful feel substantial. It wasn't elegant and nobody would mistake it for restaurant food, but it used every cheap ingredient available and turned them into comfort that stuck to your ribs through a cold afternoon. Kids cleaned their bowls without complaining, which was the real measure of success. Meatloaf with ketchup glaze. Meatloaf became the ultimate meat stretcher when hamburger was the only affordable protein at the butcher counter. A pound and a half of ground beef could feed 6 people if you mix in enough breadcrumbs, oatmeal, eggs, and diced onions. The mixture got shaped into a loaf on a baking sheet or pressed into a loaf pan, then slathered with ketchup that would caramelize into a sweet, tangy crust. That ketchup glaze was crucial. As it baked, the sugars concentrated and the vinegar mellowed, creating a sticky, slightly crispy coating that provided most of the flavor punch. Inside, the meatloaf stayed moist from all those eggs and the fat in the ground beef. You'd slice it thick at the dinner table, each piece holding together just barely. the cross-section showing flecks of onion, and maybe some green pepper if you'd had them on hand. It tasted like condensed hamburger, with the ketchup providing sweetness and acidity that cut through the richness. Kids ate it without complaint. Adults appreciated how far that meat stretched. Leftovers made even better sandwiches the next day. Serve cold between white bread with more ketchup, and maybe some iceberg lettuce if you want to be fancy. The whole meal cost under $2 and stretched that precious beef across dinner plus lunch the next day through sheer ingenuity and filler ingredients that nobody questioned. Stuffed bell peppers. Stuffed bell peppers stretched ground beef through vegetable engineering. Cut the tops off green peppers. Scoop out seeds and membranes, and you had edible containers waiting to be filled. The filling mixed brown ground beef with cooked rice, tomato sauce, diced onions, and whatever seasonings you liked. Each pepper got stuffed full, arranged in a baking dish with a little water at the bottom, then baked until the pepper walls softened and the filling heated through. They emerged and the oven collapsed slightly, the pepper tasting sweet and soft around that savory, tomato-y filling. Each pepper was a self-contained meal, vegetable, protein, and grain all in one neat package. A single pound of ground beef could stuff 6 large peppers if you use enough rice, feeding an entire family from one batch. The presentation looked almost fancy, like you tried harder than usual, even though the dish was pure economy. You ate them with a knife and fork, cutting to the tender pepper wall to release that steaming filling. Mixing everything together on your plate, they proved that poverty cooking could still have visual appeal and built-in portion control. Liver and onions. Liver and onions was the dish kids dreaded but parents swore by because liver cost almost nothing and contained more iron than anything else at the butcher counter. Beef liver came in thin, dark purple slices that turned gray-brown when cooked, with a texture somewhere between tender and slightly grainy that was unlike any other meat. You dredge those slices in flour seasoned with salt and pepper, then fry them quickly in butter with sliced onions until the liver was cooked through, but not overdone. Overcooked liver turned into shoe leather. The onions helped, their sweetness cutting to the liver's intensity, but nothing could hide what you were eating. The taste was intensely metallic, earthy, and organ-y. There was no pretending this was chicken or beef. That distinctive mineral flavor coated your mouth and lingered long after dinner ended. Adults who grew up poor often loved it because it represented rare meat during hard times. Their bodies craved that iron. Kids gagged through it, trying to swallow without chewing, washing it down with milk. It cost pennies per pound and provided more nutrients than steak, which made depression food that survived into the 1970s on pure economic logic, even when taste argued otherwise. Hamburger gravy on bread. This dish had no pretensions. It was exactly what the name promised, and it fed families when the cupboard got bare. Brown half a pound of ground beef in a skillet, leaving it crumbly and loose. Sprinkle flour over it to make a roux, stirring constantly so it didn't burn. Then pour in milk, stirring until it thickened into a pale brown gravy studded with meat pieces. Salt, pepper, maybe some garlic powder if you had it, and dinner was ready. You ladled this creamy, beefy mixture over slices of white bread that soaked up the gravy like sponges, turning soft and heavy on your plate. The taste was simple and honest. Milk gravy with meat. Basically biscuits and gravy's poor cousin made with sandwich bread instead of homemade biscuits. But it was hot, filling, and protein-rich enough to carry kids through the morning. The whole meal cost under $1 and used ingredients that never went bad. Hamburger kept in the freezer, flour and milk were always on hand, and bread was the cheapest food you could buy. It wasn't pretty. Nobody would serve it to guests, but it kept people fed when nothing else would stretch far enough, and sometimes that was all that mattered. Mac and cheese. Before food magazines discovered elevated comfort food, there was the blue box. Kraft macaroni and cheese at 19 cents a box fed more families through the mid-1970s recession than any government program. You'd set that pot of water boiling while kids finished homework, dumping those elbow noodles, and watch them tumble in the rolling water. 7 minutes later, you'd drain them in that dented metal colander your mother gave you, then add margarine because butter cost too much, milk to make it creamy, and that foil packet of nuclear orange powder that somehow tasted exactly like security. Every noodle came out wearing its fluorescent coating. The flavor hit sharp and salty, artificially cheddar in a way that had nothing to do with actual cheese, but everything to do with what food meant when money was tight. You doctor it up depending on what needed using. A can of tuna made it protein-rich. Chopped hot dogs turned it into a full meal. Leftover peas or corn got stirred, and so kids ate their vegetables without complaining. The beauty of that blue box was its democracy. Rich families and struggling families ate identical dinners on any given Tuesday. Nobody had to explain why you were serving it. Nobody had to apologize. It showed up at church potlucks alongside fancier casseroles. And people took seconds without shame because it tasted like childhood, like someone cared enough to make you dinner. Even when dinner came from a 19-cent box. Classic chili and cornbread. When beef prices jumped, chili became the great extender. 1 pound of ground beef could feed 6 people if you knew what you were doing. Brown the meat in your biggest pot. Drain off that precious fat to save for cooking later. Then add kidney beans, canned tomatoes, chili powder, cumin, and whatever vegetables were getting soft in the crisper. It simmered for hours, filling the house with smoky pepper scent that made everyone hungry long before dinner. The beans did most of the work, providing protein in bulk while the meat flavored everything. By the time you served it, that chili was thick enough to stand a spoon in, dark red from tomatoes and paprika, with just enough meat scattered throughout to make it feel substantial. Each bowl got a handful of crackers or a thick wedge of Jiffy cornbread, that yellow box that cost 19 cents and needed only an egg and milk. The cornbread came out of the oven with crispy edges and a tender middle, slightly sweet to balance the chili's heat. Together, they created the perfect stomach filler. Protein from beans and meat, carbs from corn, fiber from everything, and enough flavor to make you forget you were eating poverty food. Leftovers tasted even better the next day after the flavors married overnight. The whole meal, feeding a family of 6, cost under $3. Tuna Noodle Casserole. Tuna Noodle Casserole turned 1 can of fish into dinner for 4. This was church basement food, funeral reception food, and Tuesday night dinner when payday sat 3 days away. You boil egg noodles until they were just tender, drain them, then mix them with canned tuna that you drain but not rinse because that oil added flavor and you couldn't afford to waste anything. Cream of mushroom soup went in straight from the can, no diluting necessary. Its thick, salty, vaguely mushroom-flavored paste became the sauce that held everything together. Frozen peas added color and sweetness. Diced celery provided crunch. The whole mixture got dumped into a buttered casserole dish, topped with crushed potato chips or torn bread that had gone stale, then baked until the top turned golden, and the kitchen filled with that distinctive smell of fish and processed soup that somehow meant comfort. Each forkful delivered creamy, salty satisfaction with pops of sweet peas, and that crunchy topping providing texture. The mushroom soup stretched that single can of tuna across 4 servings while making everything taste richer than it had any right to. It represented pure efficiency. Shelf-stable protein, carbs from noodles, vegetables, and textural contrast all in one economical pan. Nothing fancy, nothing wasted, just honest food that kept families fed. Deviled ham logs. The cocktail party circuit of the 1970s wouldn't have been complete without deviled ham logs making an appearance on at least 1 glass serving tray. These savory cylindrical appetizers combined canned deviled ham with cream cheese and seasonings, shaped into logs and rolled in chopped nuts, fresh herbs, or crushed potato chips for texture. The logs were chilled until firm, then sliced to reveal perfect rounds with a crunchy exterior and creamy interior. They paired perfectly with the era's popular cocktails and gave hostesses an easy make-ahead option for entertaining. The combination of smoky ham flavor with rich cream cheese created an addictive umami taste that kept party guests coming back for more. Some creative variations included adding crushed pineapple for sweetness or horseradish for extra kick. These perfectly portioned bites represented the 1970s obsession with convenient entertaining that still managed to look elegant. The fact that they cost almost nothing to make and could be prepared days in advance made them the ultimate hostess lifesaver. Mock apple pie. Nothing captures depression ingenuity like mock apple pie, but it was a 1973 recession that brought it roaring back. When apples hit $1 a pound, Nabisco dusted off their old recipe that turned Ritz crackers into fruit. Yes, crackers. You break them up and soak them in a syrup made from water, sugar, lemon juice, and cinnamon until they soften into something that fooled your mouth completely. The crackers went into a standard pie crust, got topped with another crust, then baked until golden. What came out smelled like apple pie. The texture mimicked apple slices with unsettling accuracy. Those crackers had absorbed enough liquid to lose their crunch, but kept enough structure to bite through like cooked fruit. The lemon provided tartness. The cinnamon gave warmth, and your brain filled in the rest because it expected apples in a double-crust pie. Neighbors at potlucks couldn't identify what made it different. Kids ate it happily. The pie cost 1/3 what real apples would have run you, and everything in it sat on your shelf for months without spoiling. It became the ultimate symbol of making do, proof that American ingenuity could turn processed crackers into dessert through chemistry and sheer economic necessity. If you're enjoying this trip through history, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future videos on forgotten foods and the stories behind them. Hobo Stew. Hobo Stew earned its name from Depression-era train hoppers, but came roaring back to life when 1970s budgets got tight. This was everything but the kitchen sink cooking at its finest. Ground beef, potatoes, carrots, onions, canned corn, canned green beans, tomato sauce, all thrown into one massive pot with whatever seasonings you had on hand. No precise measurements, no fancy techniques, no pretensions. It bubbled away for an hour while you helped kid with homework or folded laundry. The house filled with that generic something's cooking smell that made everyone ask, "What's for dinner?" even though they couldn't identify from the aroma alone. By dinner time, you had a thick, reddish-brown stew with soft vegetables and little nuggets of ground beef distributed throughout like prizes. Every spoonful tasted slightly different depending on what you scooped up. One bite might be heavy on green beans, the next all potato and beef, but all went down warm and filling and satisfying in that fundamental way that mattered most when money was tight. This was survival cooking dressed up with a romantic name, feeding entire families on less than $2 while using every random can that had been sitting in the back of your cupboard for months. Bean and bacon soup. When you needed something hot and filling but only had pocket change, bean and bacon soup delivered maximum satisfaction for minimum cost. You'd start with bacon ends, those irregular scraps butchers sold for next to nothing because they weren't pretty enough for breakfast strips. Fry them until they release their fat and turn crispy, then use that rendered fat to cook onions and carrots until they softened. Dried navy beans that had soaked overnight went into the pot next, along with enough water to cover everything by a few inches. It simmered for hours, those beans gradually softening while absorbing smoky bacon flavor and releasing their starch to thicken the broth. By dinner, you had a thick, creamy soup studded with tender beans, soft vegetables, and those precious bacon bits providing salty, meaty flavor throughout. Each spoonful coated your tongue with rich, pork-flavored creaminess punctuated by whole beans that exploded softly in your mouth. The soup was substantial enough to be a complete meal, especially served with cornbread or crackers for dipping. A handful of bacon ends and a bag of dried beans created enough soup for multiple meals, making it one of the most economical ways to feed a family that still felt indulgent because of that bacon flavor. Fried green tomatoes. When your garden gave you more tomatoes than you could eat before frosted, fried green tomatoes turned waste into a meal. Southern families had been making these for generations, but the practice spread nationwide during the 1970s as vegetable gardening exploded among budget-conscious households trying to cut grocery bills. You'd slice those hard, unripe tomatoes thick, about half an inch. They felt firm under your knife, nothing like the soft red ones you'd slice for sandwiches. Dredge each slice in cornmeal seasoned with salt and pepper, then lay them in hot oil that spit and crackled when the coating hit the pan. They fried until the outside turned crispy and golden while the tomato inside stayed firm. Each bite cracked between your teeth before releasing that sharp, acidic tomato flavor that woke up your whole mouth. The coating provided salt and crunch. The tomato contributed tartness and texture. They were simultaneously crispy and juicy, rich from frying but bright from that unripe fruit tang. Families ate them as a side dish with dinner, a snack in the afternoon, or even a main event when meat wasn't in the budget. They represented pure resourcefulness, turning something you'd normally toss or leave to rot into legitimate food that people actually craved. Lentil soup. Lentils became the hippie protein of the 1970s, but traditional budget-conscious families discovered them too when meat prices skyrocketed. These tiny legumes cost almost nothing, cooked faster than regular beans, and provided protein without the premium price tag. A bag of dried brown lentils could sit in your cupboard for years without spoiling. Basic lentil soup started with a holy trinity of cheap cooking: sautéed onions, carrots, and celery. Once they'd softened, it went to lentils, canned tomatoes, bay leaves, and enough water to cover everything. It simmered until those lentils softened into tender nuggets that wanted to fall apart, creating a thick, almost porridge-like consistency that made the soup feel more substantial than it was. The flavor landed somewhere between earthy and hearty. The tomatoes provided acidity that brightened everything. The vegetables added sweetness. Each bowl came out rusty brown and steaming, substantial enough to feel like a real meal despite containing zero meat. Families served it with crusty bread for dipping, and the combination filled stomachs for pennies. Vegetarians praised it for philosophical reasons, but regular families just appreciated how far a single bag of lentils stretched when payday was still days away. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. No combination captured rainy afternoon comfort like grilled cheese and tomato soup. This wasn't gourmet cooking. It was white bread, American cheese slices, margarine for frying, and Campbell's condensed tomato soup made with milk instead of water because you weren't poor, just thrifty. The difference mattered. You'd butter one side of the bread, lay down 2 cheese slices, top another butter bread slice, and fry it in a skillet until both sides turned golden and crispy while the cheese melted into gooey submission. The sandwich came off the griddle crackling, the cheese stretching in long strings when you pull the halves apart to check for doneness. The soup simmered on the stove, turning that concentrated tomato paste into smooth, sweet, vaguely acidic liquid that tasted more like childhood than actual tomatoes. Together, they created perfect symbiosis. Dip the crispy sandwich into the hot soup, the bread soaking up liquid while the cheese stayed molten. Each bite delivered crunchy, creamy, hot, tangy satisfaction that cost less than 50 cents and made kids feel loved on the coldest days. Watergate Salad. Watergate Salad appeared at every 1970s potluck, named after the scandal that defined the era. This wasn't salad in any traditional sense. It was instant pistachio pudding mixed with canned pineapple, mini marshmallows, whipped topping, and chopped pecans if you felt fancy. The resulting mixture came out pale green and fluffy, sweet and creamy with unexpected chunks of pineapple and occasional crunch of nut. It tasted like dessert masquerading as a side dish, which is exactly what it was. That pistachio pudding provided distinctive artificial flavor and pastel color that screamed 1970s processed food culture. The marshmallows added chewiness. The pineapple contributed acidic sweetness that cut through all that cream. You'd serve in a glass bowl to show off that characteristic green color, and people would either love it or be utterly baffled by its existence. It cost almost nothing to make since everything came from boxes and cans. It lasted for days in the refrigerator, getting better as the flavors married. Was it actually salad? Not even close. Did anyone care? Also no. It was sweet, it was easy, and it filled a slot on the potluck table without requiring any actual cooking skills or expensive ingredients. Wacky Cake. Wacky Cake earned its name because it contained no eggs, no butter, and no milk. Nothing that could spoil or cost much money. This Depression-era recipe surged back during 1970s inflation when eggs hit 70 cents a dozen and butter became a luxury. You'd mix flour, sugar, cocoa, baking soda, and salt directly in the baking pan, creating craters for wet ingredients. The wet ingredients were equally strange: vegetable oil, white vinegar, vanilla extract, and water. Everything mixed right there in the pan. No bowls needed. The vinegar reacted with the baking soda to provide lift, since no eggs were there to do the job. After baking, it emerged as a dark, moist chocolate cake that tasted surprisingly legitimate despite its bizarre method. The texture was tender and springy. The chocolate flavor was deep and satisfying. You'd frost it with simple chocolate icing made from cocoa, powdered sugar, and water. Again, no butter. The whole cake cost under $1 and fed 8 people, proving you didn't need expensive ingredients to make real dessert. It became a potluck staple and kids' birthday cake, entirely acceptable despite its poverty origins. Nobody at the party needed to know how cheap it was to make. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. The humble PB&J wasn't just kids' lunch. It was legitimate dinner when the grocery money ran out before payday arrived. 2 slices of white bread, cheap peanut butter spread thick on one side, grape jelly or strawberry jam on the other. Pressed together to create the most economical complete protein meal in America. The peanut butter stuck to the roof of your mouth, creamy and salty, while the jelly provided sweetness and just enough moisture to help everything go down together. They created that familiar flavor combination that every American kid could recognize blindfolded. A jar of peanut butter and a jar of jelly could produce dozens of sandwiches, making the per meal cost almost negligible. Adults ate them without shame when money got tight, because they were filling, nostalgic, and required zero cooking skill or energy. They appeared in lunch boxes on dinner plates, and as midnight snacks across every income bracket. The meal was utterly classless. Rich kids and poor kids ate identical PB and JS, unified by processed food democracy and American food culture standardization. When everything else failed, peanut butter and jelly kept you fed. Ham salad sandwiches. Ham salad turned leftover holiday ham into a week of lunches. You'd grind or finely chop whatever ham remained after dinner. Mix it with mayonnaise, sweet pickle relish, and maybe some mustard for tang. The resulting mixture looked vaguely pink and smelled tangy sweet from those pickles. Spread thick between 2 slices of white bread, it made a sandwich that was simultaneously familiar and slightly off-putting if you thought too hard about its texture. The taste combined salty ham, sweet pickles, and creamy mayo in each bite, with little chunks of meat providing texture against a smooth spread. It wasn't pretty. The mixture looked suspiciously like cat food, and kids noticed, but it was economical and used every scrap of expensive meat that remained after a special occasion. Adults made it because wasting food was unconscionable when money was tight. That single holiday ham extended into sandwiches, soup, casseroles, and breakfast hash for over a week. Ham salad was just one stop on the leftover utilization train, turning something that might have gone bad into packed lunches that cost nothing but the mayonnaise and relish. Porcupine Meatballs. Porcupine Meatballs earned their whimsical name from the way uncooked rice poked out like quills after cooking. You'd mix ground beef with uncooked white rice, beaten eggs, and seasonings, form a mixture into balls, then simmer them in tomato sauce until the rice cooked through and expanded. The genius was in the rice serving dual purposes, as filler to stretch expensive ground beef and as the starch component of the meal. As the meatballs simmered, those rice grains absorbed liquid and pushed through the meat, creating the porcupine effect that delighted kids. The tomato sauce became infused with flavors from the meat as it cooked, creating a rich, satisfying gravy perfect for spooning over everything. Mothers appreciated that this one-pot meal required minimal cleanup and could simmer unattended while they helped kids with homework or folded laundry. The meatballs came out tender and flavorful, with each grain of rice fully cooked and the meat staying moist from all that simmering. It was economical, filling, and entertaining to look at, which made it a weeknight winner that kids actually got excited about eating. Tuna Twist Casserole. Tuna Twist Casserole took the basic tuna noodle concept and made it slightly more interesting with spiral pasta instead of egg noodles. The twist held on to that creamy sauce better than regular noodles, making each bite more satisfying. You'd mix drained canned tuna with cooked pasta spirals, cream of mushroom soup, frozen peas, and maybe some diced pimentos for color. The whole thing got topped with crushed potato chips that turned golden and crispy in the oven, providing that crucial textural contrast against the creamy interior. Some families added diced celery for extra crunch or a dash of hot sauce for kick. The casserole represented everything great about 1970s cooking: convenience, creativity, and comfort all in one dish. This retro classic could feed a family of 6 for just a few dollars, making it the MVP of budget-friendly meals that still manage to feel special. The combination of creamy, crunchy, salty, and savory hit all the right notes without requiring any cooking expertise or expensive ingredients. It was democratic food at its finest. Baked Ziti with tomato sauce. Baked Ziti became the Italian-American answer to Tuna Noodle Casserole. Cheap, filling, and suitable for feeding crowds. Boil ziti pasta until just tender. Mix it with jarred tomato sauce and maybe some ricotta or cottage cheese if you had it. Layer it in a baking dish with mozzarella on top. Then bake until the cheese melted and turned golden. The result was comfort food that seemed more sophisticated than hamburger casserole because it had an Italian name. Each forkful delivered tender pasta tubes filled with tangy tomato sauce, creamy cheese melting throughout, and that slightly crispy cheese top providing texture. The tomato sauce was sweet and acidic. The cheese added richness. The pasta provided substance. It was filling enough to be a complete meal without any meat, which made it economical during beef shortages. The whole pan cost under $3 and fed 6 people with leftovers that reheated perfectly for lunch the next day. It showed up at potlucks, family dinners, and weeknight tables across America, proving that Italian-inspired food could be just as thrifty as any other poverty cuisine while feeling a bit more special. Tiki Meatballs. The tiki craze of the 1960s extended its influence into 1970s home cooking with dishes like Tiki Meatballs. These saucy spheres combine ground beef with crushed saltine crackers, eggs, and minced onions, formed into balls and browned before being simmered in a sweet sour sauce made with pineapple juice, vinegar, brown sugar, and soy sauce. Pineapple chunks and green bell pepper pieces got added to the sauce, creating a colorful, exotic-looking dish that gave suburban families a taste of tropical flavors without leaving home. The sauce thickened to a glossy finish, coating each meatball in shiny, sweet savory glaze that paired perfectly with white rice. The dish perfectly captured the 1970s fascination with Polynesian-inspired cuisine that had been popularized by restaurants like Trader Vic's. Home cooks appreciated that it could be prepared ahead and reheated, making it perfect for busy weeknights or weekend dinner parties. The combination of familiar meatballs with exotic sauce ingredients represented how American cuisine was expanding its flavor profiles during this decade, incorporating international influences while maintaining familiar formats. These 25 recipes tell the real story of 1970s cooking, not the fondue parties and beef Wellington from magazine spreads, but the everyday meals that kept families fed when money was tight and groceries were expensive. They represent an era when home cooks knew exactly how to make something from nothing, when wasting food was unthinkable, and when a 19-cent box could be the difference between dinner and going hungry. Which of these recipes do you remember eating? Did your family have their own version of any of these dishes? Drop a comment below and let me know what budget meals you grew up with. And if you enjoyed this journey through culinary history, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future videos on forgotten foods and the stories that shaped how America eats.